Hello everyone. It's been a week of updates, but this case in particular is important to recover because we now have new information that could really alter how we look at the Layla Santanello disappearance. When new information comes out in a case, I definitely think it's important to reshare the case and recover the case and just go through what is different so it can best help find the person that is missing. If you haven't watched my first breakdown on the case, I definitely recommend doing so because I went into a lot more detail, but we're going to be re-looking at the timeline now that we've had some major changes. Layla's case is definitely one that is not getting enough attention. There are so many other cases that have blown up, even just recently, not even ones that were from about a year ago, that have skyrocketed. I've seen the GoFundMes getting, tens of thousands of dollars. It's all over the news. Every big true crime account is talking about these people. However, for whatever reason, maybe the circumstances, maybe the fact that Layla disappeared from a small town, Layla's case is not getting much, if any, coverage. And her mother and her family have been fighting for Layla's case to be put out there and to be talked about and for information to come in and for her to get the notoriety that she needs so that hopefully tips can come in and her family can get some closure, Layla can get some justice, that Layla could be found if she's still out there somewhere. No one's really talking about her case, and I want to do my part in spreading the word on Layla's case, and I hope you all will share this video, share all the content relating to this video, whether it's from her mother's Facebook or her stepmother's Facebook page for Layla, TikTok accounts that they have where they're talking about this information, her missing persons flyer, anything. Just share anything, and hopefully it will spread wide enough that, someone will see it, someone else bigger will talk about it. Maybe if Layla is somewhere out there, we'll see her and be able to send in information. But if no one's talking about it, nothing's going to change. 20-year-old Layla Santanello disappeared from Kingsport, Tennessee on June 27th of 2023. Around the time of her disappearance, she was suffering from postpartum depression, and she had also recently lost her grandfather, which hit her really hard. During that June, Layla was actually living with her boyfriend, Michael Thompson, at his parents' home, and it is thought that they were both actively suffering from addictions. And due to those circumstances, her mother, Jennifer, and her grandmother were actually sharing temporary custody of her 2-year-old daughter, Nova. Now, it's a series of events that happened in the days prior to Layla disappearing that may be what leads to figuring out what happened to Layla and where she is. On June 23rd, which was just a few days before she disappeared, Layla and Michael ended up having an argument at his home, and Layla fled the home barefoot without her cell phone. This is when Michael would go ahead and access Layla's Facebook account and begin to message her mother, Jennifer, asking her where Layla was, inquiring if she was at the hospital or in a jail since he couldn't find her. Now, the fact that Michael had access to her Facebook account brought a lot of red flags to me, and it made me really ask, why did Michael have access to her personal accounts? Well, from what I learned, it seems that Michael and Layla were very often sharing devices because on a previous occasion, Michael had actually been arrested and their phones had been confiscated. Now, here's the thing. Despite Michael messaging Jennifer, freaking out, wondering, where Layla is, later that night, Layla would actually access her Facebook account, and seeing the messages that Michael had sent her mom, she knew that her mom would be worried. So she ended up telling her mom, and I quote, "I'm fine, Mom. I've been with a friend. I don't have a phone to text or call. I'm using someone else's." End quote. Now, police would end up tracking the IP address from that cell phone ping, and they would determine that Layla was in fact at this unknown friend's house at that time, and she was using their device. So it was in fact Layla sending those text messages. I know there are quite a few speculations of if someone else was sending these messages, but it seems to be proven by police that it was Layla that night. Now, the reason that Jennifer wasn't asking Layla too many questions over Facebook Messenger seems to be that Jennifer was assuming that Layla had finally had enough of Michael's shit, and that is why she left him, which is why she was staying at a friend's house. She knew that Michael had access to the account, so she didn't want Layla to out where she was or what she was doing so that, her and Michael could have the space that they needed. We now know, due to new text messages that I've seen released, that Michael thought that Layla was in fact staying at an ex-boyfriend named Cody's home. We speculated in part 1 a lot about these text messages because they were redacted when I first found them, and I was speculating if he was talking about maybe a dealer, a past dealer. It just didn't really make sense with the way it was redacted, but now let's read through it with the new information that we have. So the text message in fact reads, and I quote, "Jen, I don't know if you got the lightest idea of where Layla is. I haven't heard shit from her, nor has anyone since yesterday around 4 a.m. Like something is really up. All I know is she's supposed to be with a Cody or something. I don't know if it's her ex-Cody. I don't know any more Codys. I've called jails. I've called hospitals. I have no idea. The only thing she said to me at 4 a.m. yesterday was, 'Hey babe, I'm at Jen's.' I went over there. Jen said that Layla had said she was going to walk out and smoke, and said Jen never seen or heard from her again either." End quote. Here's the thing. Layla was alive after this message as far as we know. So something didn't directly happen, again, as far as we know, at this Jen or Cody's house, whoever these people are. And I'm guessing that may be the person's home where she was using the phone to message her mother, that friend's house. Let me know down below if you have more information on that. Layla would end up staying at this friend's house for about 2 nights, and then on June 25th, she would move to the AmeriCorps Motel on American Way, and she'd be staying there with a friend. It's now thought that Layla ended up using an unknown substance while she was there, and that she may have had a bad reaction. Again, Michael would end up contacting Jennifer through Layla's Facebook, saying he still couldn't find her and that he was worried. So at this point, Jennifer ended up actually getting a little bit worried, and she ended up calling Layla's father to speak to him about, the next steps that they should maybe take. But they ended up kind of making this agreement that maybe we should just hold off to the morning, she'll eventually call. However, Layla's father and her stepmother Brittany were basically tossing and turning all night. They just had a bad feeling and they didn't want to wait to call the police, so they ended up just going ahead and calling the police. Now during this time on the 26th, the 27th, when everyone was kind of worried and they were kind of starting to look for Layla, she was actually alive and well at the AmeriCorps Motel as far as everyone knew. But due to this bad reaction from this unknown substance she took, she ended up getting disoriented. She couldn't find the hotel room that she was staying at there, and then a disturbance ended up happening where she was almost kicked out from the motel. It's said that sometime after this, police ended up showing up at the motel for a completely unrelated call, and this ended up spooking Layla, so she ended up running into a nearby wooded area. And she would actually, as far as everyone knows, sleep in this wooded area until morning. Now, the information about the police arriving there is something that I didn't see previously, so that kind of makes sense why she would have been, maybe spooked and ran, especially if she was having this bad trip, this bad reaction to whatever she had taken. She ended up getting in trouble with the motel staff, and then the police showed up. She probably thought it was for her, so she ran into the woods. Now it's a very brief rundown of the days before Layla disappeared. As I said, I went into a lot more detail in my previous video. However, we do have some new information that kind of alters things. So let's get into that new information. In the early stages of the investigation, we believed that Layla had actually woken up in the morning of the 27th after allegedly sleeping in this wooded area, this field all night. And we know she was in that field because warehouse workers that were just nearby ended up spotting her walking across the field that morning. It said that Layla walked over to them and asked one of them for a cigarette. However, this person didn't smoke. And when none of them had any to offer her, she ended up taking off in the direction of the Kingsport Greenbelt Trail. Now, after this, she was allegedly spotted at a marble slab creamery. And we went into a lot of detail talking about how she could have walked to the trail to the back of the creamery, which is where one of the employees would end up finding this alleged person that looked like Layla. And she was sitting there barefoot, and they sat and they chatted for a while. They had a pretty deep conversation, it seemed. The worker actually offered this woman that was sitting there a phone to call, and it said she called a friend to come pick her up. However, this friend wasn't available to. So after this, the woman ended up leaving and saying she was going to go to Five Below to buy some shoes. However, this information has now all been debunked by police, stating in an e-news article from the Kingsport Police Department that, and I quote, "Early in the investigation, detectives and agents believed she was last seen at Marble Slab based on several witness statements. Detectives and agents followed the leads and eventually learned that the woman who was seen at the Marble Slab was not Layla. They confirmed that information through phone records as well as identifying the woman and interviewing with her." End quote. So all this time, we thought Layla was alive and well for the majority of the 27th, but it looks like she may not have been, which is huge information. According to what police are now saying, Layla was last seen alive around 6:15 a.m. when she emerged out of that field and walked over to those warehouse workers asking for a cigarette. After this, she then headed towards that Greenbelt area, which is a bike path that runs along the outskirts of the city. After this, no one knows what happened to Layla. Police also don't mention in this statement about the surveillance footage that was previously mentioned about capturing a woman that looked like Layla walking barefoot towards the Greenbelt Trail. I would really like more information on that. That's something I'm very curious about. I would love to see that footage. Police would eventually go to Michael's home that day as well, and they would end up speaking to him and his parents, and as far as everyone knows, they were very cooperative with police. The afternoon of the 27th as well, Jennifer ended up speaking to police, and they told her that they believed that Layla was still at the AmeriCorps Motel. The next day, Jennifer ended up finding out which motel room it was thought that Layla was staying at, and she ended up sending her boyfriend at the time and a family friend to go check out the motel and see if Layla was there. And when the two men ended up arriving at the motel, they actually ran into Michael and his friends who were also at the hotel, which is just a weird coincidence to me, but hey. And so I guess Jennifer's boyfriend and the family friend and Michael and his friends ended up teaming together, and they ended up walking around down the Greenbelt Trail seeing if they could find Layla. However, Layla was not found. Now, 2 weeks after this, is when Layla's family began to receive Cash App requests from Layla's Cash App account. And all of this time, we've been wondering who was behind the cryptic messages being sent to Layla's family, such as this one where it says, and I quote, 15 minutes or you'll find her in pieces, end quote. There were countless other ones that were also just as haunting and disgusting. And when I first covered this case, as far as police were putting out, it was friends that were behind this Cash App account. And I talked about how Layla didn't seem to have great friends then, if they were going to be using her Cash App to do this and that. However, it wasn't exactly Layla's sketchy friends that were behind trying to extort her family for money by threatening Layla's life. But instead, it was her boyfriend, Michael. A grand jury would end up indicting Michael on February 14th of this year for identity theft, theft under $1,000, illegal possession or fraudulent use of credit and debit cards, and extortion based on evidence collected as part of Layla's missing persons case. It would turn out that police had traced the IP address of that Cash App being used to Michael's home. However, Michael wouldn't be arrested until March 4th of this year, and after being booked into the Sullivan County Jail, he was being held on a $15,000 bond. Now, I do say arrested, but according to Michael's Facebook, he turned himself in because in a post he made on February 29th, so just a few days before he was arrested, he wrote, and I quote, if I don't got your number and want to keep in touch with me after I turn myself into jail, send it to me, I'll write it down. I don't know how this is going to play out, yet I just know I got serious warrants and I'ma face them head on, and I never ran for my court shit and I don't feel like starting now. I'm on a vacation till Friday, and soon as I get back in town, I'm gonna buy some new whites and head to Blountville for a while. Hey, it happens to the best of us. Just holla at me. End quote. Happens to the best of you. Yeah, Michael. Definitely something I wouldn't expect to be posting on Facebook, but I guess Michael seems to be an open book. And it really, really makes me wonder, why was Michael using her Cash App account to not only threaten her life, but extort her family for money, considering he loved her so much? Why would he go to the extent to sending her mother and her stepmother and family members countless messages begging to find her? He helped her loved ones to search for her. And then he goes home 2 weeks later and decides to extort them for money by threatening to kill her, basically, and chop her up into little pieces. Well, from the way that Layla's family describes Layla and Michael's relationship, and from what I've read on their social medias, their relationship, in my opinion, seemed extremely toxic. I mean, not only is it alleged that they enabled each other's drug addictions, we know for a fact that she ran from his house barefoot without her cell phone just a couple days before she went missing, which is another red flag in my opinion. And in the hours and days following, Michael ended up using her accounts to contact her family instead of using his own accounts. And just on top of all of that, the family felt like Michael was doing all of this for selfish reasons when he was sending these messages trying to find Layla in the initial, days where she was missing but not really missing. And they really seemed to feel like Layla had left Michael and ran from the home, not only from, whatever was going on there, but because she was done with his bullshit, for lack of better words. Despite all of this, in the months before her disappearance, Layla was constantly posting things like, and I quote, love of my life, end quote, to posting about her and Michael going on fun vacations together, to how he was the best boyfriend in the whole universe. Meanwhile, things weren't as butterflies and rainbows as Layla was portraying on her social media, as most people's lives are. And I say this because a few months prior to Layla's disappearance, there was another alleged altercation with who Layla's mother Jennifer calls female members of Michael's family. And this photo that I have on the screen right now shows abrasions that she had on her neck and face after that alleged altercation. So could something like that have happened again, which is why she ended up fleeing the home? Jennifer has now also alleged that the reason that Layla ran from Michael's family home that day was because she was again in an altercation with female members of the family. We talked about in part 1 that Layla's friends allegedly were saying that she was cheating on Michael and maybe he found out and that's why Layla ran, because they had a fight about it. But it seems like whatever it was that she ran from that house was something bad, that someone would leave without their shoes, without their phone, without anything, and clearly not want to go back there. But despite all of this stuff, despite, Michael going to the extent to extort her family for money, which he knew he was doing, Michael still loved to portray himself as loving Layla on social media and seeming like this good guy whose girlfriend had disappeared. Up until the day of his arrest, he was still posting on social media over the last few months things like this, where he writes in January of 2024, and I quote, I remember when my Layla used to do this shit, laugh my ass off, end quote. Or this post in December of 2023 saying, and I quote, man, just never mind, I miss you, Layla, end quote. In this post where he says, and I quote, "Layla and Nova love Christmas. I remember these days like they happened yesterday. I hope the Lord brings her home. Without her, I have no chance of ever being able to call a holiday anything besides another day. This girl's smile is breathtaking to me, and man, I remember when I was able to get her everything she wanted that year. My pockets didn't like it, but there's not any amount of money I would give just to see her smile and know that she's satisfied. I love you, Layla. To your Layla Moon and back. Merry Christmas, baby." End quote. So Michael, if you loved Layla so much, why did you try to allegedly extort her family for ransom money and threaten to chop her into little pieces? Riddle me that, please. Even though the police and the family don't feel like Michael is involved in Layla's disappearance, it doesn't mean that he's actually a good person and that he actually cared about Layla. Because someone that cares about someone doesn't do what Michael did and then pretend like he did nothing wrong and put this mask out the social media and to her family and friends that he's a great guy. Again, meanwhile, he was threatening to chop her into little pieces for money. Crazy to me. In my opinion, Michael is not a great person. He's not a great boyfriend. He's not a great guy. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know how you feel down below about that. Now, Layla's stepmother, Brittany, also had a feeling that Michael was involved with the Snapchat requests, saying, and I quote, "I brought it to Michael's attention a few times. He was in total denial. It was more like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me." End quote. Because despite Layla being missing, it seemed like the family was keeping Michael close, trying to see if they could get any information from him, see if he knew anything. Brittany continued by saying, and I quote, "I kind of gave him a heads up because he came to me saying he had information on Layla. And Michael asked if I could set something up with law enforcement, but he decided not to show. So the deal was off the table. And sure enough, Michael got picked up on some hefty charges, and it was in regards to the Cash App." End quote. So that is some of the new information that we do have on Layla's case. We now know she was not at the ice cream shop at the Marble Slab Creamery. She was last, in fact, seen in that field by these warehouse workers. She asked for a cigarette, and then she went off into the green belt. We talked again a lot in part one how this green belt stretches very far around the city, so it could kind of lead anywhere. So if she did walk onto that green belt, depending where you are on it, it's kind of wooded. It could be behind houses. It could not be behind houses. There could have been someone on that path that had bad intentions. She could have taken that path and walked somewhere else in the city, and we just don't know which way she went. There's a lot of possibilities, it seems. And the fact that she hasn't been found, and it's been, 7, 8, 9 months at this point, I don't think she, OD'd or something like that on the trail, and she just hasn't been found. You think that they would have found her by now. A lot of people take this trail. It's the fact that there's not any evidence at all. They didn't find anything of hers. They didn't find any video footage, and the video footage that they claim to have, they haven't released. So I don't know. There's just really not that much, but someone has to know something out there. Layla was 20 years old when she disappeared. She is now 21 years old. She's a mother to a little girl who is desperately missing her mommy. Layla is also a very small woman, so someone could have easily overpowered her. She is 4 foot 10 inches tall, around 115 pounds, with brown eyes, brown hair that was bleached blonde at the time of her disappearance. She also has multiple tattoos, the most notable being her daughter's name, Nova Grace, tattooed on her forearm. If anyone knows something, please say something. I will have information down below to contact the authorities. Now, before we go, I also wanted to update you all on the disappearance of 19-year-old Hollynn Snapp, who we also covered in my previous video. And it has now been announced that her case is officially not connected to Layla's. There was kind of some talk in the beginning that there were similarities between the two of them. They were both around the similar, height and stature. Both disappeared not too far apart. They maybe have known each other, been in the same friend circles. They were both struggling with addictions. But the information we do have on Hollynn's case is terrifying, and it's extremely sad. So if you remember, Hollynn would end up going missing on October 15th of 2023 in the area of Belridge Drive. But it's now being said that Hollynn was allegedly living with an older man around 50 years old, and it said that they would do drugs together. The new information that we now have is that Hollynn was allegedly last seen laying on the couch in this 50-year-old man's home, and she had been brutally beaten from head to toe. Multiple witnesses have allegedly come forward saying that they witnessed Hollynn laying on this couch beaten, yet no one knows what happened to Hollynn after she was assaulted. Keep in mind, Hollynn is also only 4'8" and around 90 pounds, so she could have easily been overpowered by a 50-year-old man, especially to the extent that it's described she was beaten. And since she was last seen on that couch, no one has heard or seen from her again. So it is now believed that Hollynn was most likely a victim of foul foul play. Now, the next day, this 50-year-old man would allegedly tell his friends that Hollynn had been picked up by her friends and family and that she was no longer going to be around. However, Hollynn's family clearly did not go and pick her up because they are the ones that reported her missing and have been actively searching for her for months and months and months now, who have been on the news begging for answers. And it's alleged that police know who this 50-year-old man is. Yet where are the answers? Where is the justice here? Where is Hollynn? And you think because the police know who this man is that they'd be able to maybe arrest him if he's, a prime suspect, etc., but it seems like there is no evidence here other than witness statements. So the police unfortunately don't have much to go on, and they have bigger cases to deal with. It seems like it is a small police department. Theirs is a smaller town, and it seems like family and those closest to Hollynn's case are kind of getting fed up with all of this that's going on, and they want answers. They want justice, and they do deserve it. Hollynn deserves justice if she is not alive no more. And it's just really sad, considering it's said that she had the mental capacity of like maybe a 10 or 11-year-old, somewhere around there it was said, even though she was 19. And the fact that she was swept up into doing drugs, she got addicted, she was living with this older man, and then she was last seen beaten very severely, laying on a couch. It's just, Hollynn didn't deserve this, and her family needs answers. Now, as always, I will have all the information down in the description if you have any information on either Layla or Hollynn's cases. I'll also have Jennifer and Brittany's Facebook groups down below. They both have accounts for Layla's disappearance. I'll also have Jennifer's TikTok down below. She pretty much posts every day talking about her daughter's disappearance and trying to keep the word out there. And they post very frequently. There's always updates. There's always information. So go follow those if you want daily updates on Layla's case. Also have some links down below for Hollynn as well. As I said in the beginning, these are cases that are not getting much publicity. No one's really talking about them, and they deserve just as much notoriety as any other cases. As I say a lot, I feel like smaller cases are more important to even talk about than bigger cases, even though every case is equally important. But when smaller cases aren't getting talked about enough and everyone's just talking about these bigger cases, it can really drown these smaller cases out, and they don't get coverage. The word doesn't get out there. There are so many people out there who don't know that Layla and Hollynn are missing, and it's very unfortunate. So please go spread any information you have on these cases. Share my video, share the family's information, share missing persons posters, do whatever you can do. And my heart goes out to Layla's family and Hollynn's family. These are two cases that I really hope get solved. I really hope that they do blow up. I hope bigger channels find them, and I hope that they can get answers. Let's have a conversation down below how you're all feeling about these new updates. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.